Hello, I'm Mike Ryan. I'm the Chief Networking Officer at PIMS, and welcome to our second season of Minutes with Mike. Now in my 33rd year at PIMS, I've had the privilege of partnering with companies both large and small, supporting their PR and marketing through customized fulfillment and distribution that delivers measurable impact on their brand perception, boosts positive affinity, and fuels their overall brand performance. And throughout my career, I've had the chance to work alongside many talented folks. This is their story. On this show, we'll sit down with some of the world's top marketing and business thought leaders to learn more about their success, how they got there, how marketing helped them achieve their goals, what strategies they used, and what inspires them. Please join me on this journey as we learn from those who are changing the way we think about business. So sit back, enjoy. You're listening to Minutes with Mike. Welcome, everybody, to Minutes with Mike. We have a very special guest today, Dasha Manina. She is the founder of Licensify and a self-proclaimed beauty serial entrepreneur. Dasha, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here. I want to say this is my second podcast, and I've been very much looking forward to this. I'm going to make sure to send it to all my friends.
I really appreciate that. I had the pleasure of meeting Dasha. I believe it was in Las Vegas. Were we in Las Vegas?
That's right. It was in Vegas, baby.
And part of the gathering when we come together, and whether it's something like Cosmoprof or some different opportunity or different event, they oftentimes have dinners or lunches or breakfasts that support it. So I happened to be, I think we were having a drink, and I was with a colleague, and over my shoulder, I heard some fascinating conversation. I turned, and it was Dasha talking to somebody about her company and her journey, and I was like blown away. And then I got to know her a little bit better, and I was like, you have to be on my podcast. So thank you for taking the time.
It's possible. I said, I really want to be on your podcast. So we're not sure if we start, what's first, but I'm here, and that's all that matters.
Let's jump right into it. So how did it start? How did the journey start? Walk us through your, where it all began and your career journey and all that. How did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, so we got to go way back, right? So way back, I started in the industry when I was doing research on a nail polish line that I wanted to launch. So I went to school. I went to Christine Valmy school in New York City, and I was there to receive a nail technician license. When I was in school, I was horrified at what I've learned. I was really offended, and I was really shocked. And being an entrepreneur and always coming up with big ideas, I was like, what is this? How do I help? How is it that I, as a consumer, never knew that when you go to a beauty provider, that there's a chance that they don't know what they're doing because they're really not being monitored. There's not enough funds in the government to be able to sort of have enough inspectors. Yep. And it's just sort of there's this break in communication between the professional industry and the consumers. So I thought to myself, okay, what do I do? And then that's when the idea came to me to unite the professional industry with consumers, to make it easy for someone like myself to be able to go and find a licensed professional when it comes to nails or anything else. It started with nails because obviously that's all that I knew. And as I met more people and they all heard the idea, they said, oh, no, you got to do all different license types. So then we went back to the drawing board and we added all licenses by the board of barbering and cosmetology. So I was working on that. We had to rewrite the code from scratch multiple times. It was a mess. You can imagine almost 50 different state databases. You have to compile them together. You have to figure out a way for that to work. It was just a mess. It took a really long time. And then when it was ready, I went to Cosmoprof. And I went I made a beeline for all the nail companies. And I started speaking to them about the initiative to see how they would really support the industry and support the consumer. And that was when I met Tal Orley, who is Jeff Pink's son, the founder of Orley. And as I was pitching him the concept and what I was doing, he looked at me and said, why are you not offering this to brands? So the process is completely flawed because there is no way to automate the license verification, fully sort of explain what happens. If you are a licensed stylist and you want to buy hair and you go on a website that sells hair, you have to prove that you're a licensed stylist. So how does that happen? You have to update credentials. So you have to update a photo of your license. Somebody within the company then verifies it. approves you, onboards you onto the platform, creates a user credentials for you, and sends you an email telling you can purchase. Well, by that point, you've already purchased the product somewhere else because you want it when you want it.
Right.
And, if you have to wait a long time, you can't, you need it, you're done. So they would lose all these sales. So now that I've come along with this technology and after working with Tal, we were able to start offering it to manufacturers, which is a huge shift in the industry and is really revolutionary in a sense that we were able to automate a process that was completely manual until I came along.
You really tied, I want to talk a little bit about Beauty A-List and Maxis Beauty as well, your other startups, but you really married two opportunities, right? That entrepreneurial feel tied to your background. You have a background in IT, right? Where you kind of got the...
It's funny. Your parents really do know you. When I was going to school, and I wanted to go to school for fashion, I wanted to go to FIT. And I came to my parents and I said, I'm going to FIT. And they said, you're not going to FIT. If you want to work in fashion, you can after you graduate college with a technology degree. So I graduated with a management information systems degree, which for the first couple of years when I got out of school, I actually did not work in tech at all. I didn't do this. I worked in fashion.
Mom and dad always know.
They knew. And so that's really where that came from. Somehow they just knew that it was in me.
So I want to get into the nuances of Licensify, but tell me about Beauty A-List to start with. What that was your first brainchild, the first to sort of roll up your sleeves moment?
So yeah, that's really, I didn't even knew that Licensify was something that was needed in the industry because I didn't know the industry. Mm-hmm. So I came into the industry without knowing a soul. I didn't really know anyone. I didn't know how it worked. So it was really through meeting people. And really, I will always give credit to Tal because of him that I did all this. And I always tell him this, that when I'm going to get my first award from the industry, I'm dedicated to that I didn't even know it was needed. So my brainchild was always Beauty A-List. It started with Beautician List. I didn't know how to name it. Apparently, beautician is not a word that is very well accepted in the industry. People don't know how to spell it. That was a disaster. So I renamed it to Beauty A-List, which keeps it short and straight to the point. So that was my first brainchild. And because of that, because I've adapted, and I think it's so important as an entrepreneur to listen, I listened to what was needed in the industry and I just kept pivoting. And that's how Licensify came about.
And, I'm not telling you anything you don't know or people that are watching this don't know, but much like the beauty world, there are your conglomerates, the nail polish conglomerates like an OPI or somebody like that, right? But there's also a tremendous amount of startups, like companies that are looking to find their way, companies that are looking to navigate how to get from here to there and forego some of the pitfalls that you had to step through and around in order to get everything going. Tell me about how you've intersected technology and beauty together. Tell me some of the pitfalls along that route. Like you obviously found two ways to intersect to create this new brand that you've come up with. Tell me some of the pitfalls of how that worked.
I think it's not so much of a pitfall, but I think the biggest issue is adapting something that is brand new for others. Even though it might be beneficial, people are always scared to try something new or perhaps do not have the vision. So it's only until you are successful, then they're going to be excited and will want to be a part of what you're doing. But I think the biggest, I wouldn't say pitfall, but I think the biggest issue is really just believing in yourself and aligning yourself with those that believe in your vision.
That's a great segue into what I was just going to say. I don't know if I heard it on the podcast that you did with somebody else, or I read a post that you put on LinkedIn, but you said a quote that kind of struck me. I read it a couple of times and I'm like, wow, that's really kind of a cool quote. And you said, entrepreneurship is not for everyone who crosses your path, is in it for the long haul. Right. And that's true in business. So on top of everything else you're doing, you're also a female entrepreneur. Right. So talk to me about that statement. Where did that come from? And tell me what you mean by that.
Well, there will always be people that you meet that will have their own agendas. There will be people that you meet that will not talk to you unless they think that you're going to get something out of it. Or there are people that will talk to you only because they think they will get something out of it. I actually had a very interesting example of this. I've had somebody call the company and I picked up the phone and they didn't know they were talking to me and they thought they were talking to an assistant. And they were incredibly rude. Then they reached out to me on LinkedIn and very nice. And yeah, I thought that was really, really fascinating that how people can be.
It's funny too, because I've spoken to a number of different entrepreneurs, and, one thing they say that's a real commonality, and you could probably talk to this a little bit too, is you have to be able to obviously to get the good with the bad, right? But you will be the first one to say you're not great at everything, right? There are some things you're really good at, and there's some things that is just outside your lane, right? And it's important to be able to not only look at those and learn from those, but be able to point those out so that you can go find somebody who's good in finance, that you can go find somebody to sell this technology, that you can go find a group of people as an account team to work with current and existing clients. Tell me about that. Like, how is that sort of segued into what you do and how you do it as well?
Without my team, I would be nothing. Without the people that I work with that have helped me propel to where I am right now, I wouldn't be able to be here. And I completely realize that, and I always put them at the forefront. They are my biggest advocates. I will always cheer for them. I appreciate them beyond words. And if I work with you and you work for me, I fully trust that you know what you're doing. And I chose you because you know better than me. Otherwise, I would do it myself. I always think of myself as a big idea person. I like, what is it, the jack of all trades, but a master of none? That's me. I know a little bit about everything, and obviously I have to. Running a very small team, I do a lot. So I have to know a lot, but I don't ever fool myself into thinking that I am the greatest at everything. I just happen to be a person that loves big ideas and is not scared of them.
Well said. Let's talk about Licensify and the nuts and bolts of it. So you were obviously at Cosmoprof because you were looking for new technologies, you were looking for new sales opportunities, you were looking, like people at PIMS are, to mix with the crowd that you're within, right? This is our world, and we want to be able to know all the new people and say hello to the old people and say hello to existing clients and maybe get introduced to new opportunity and clients. Let's talk about Licensify. What is it? What does it do? And where is it going?
Yeah, so Licensify is the software that enables Beauty A-List. So it's the software that automates license verifications for manufacturers, for distributors, soon to be trade shows, and basically anyone that deals with a licensed professional. So we make it extremely easy for them to get to them, for them to sell to them, or for them to provide specific information that should only affect professionals. So that is the technology this year. So we started with an API integration. We have a WooCommerce plugin. That was exciting. Actually, when you go on a website and they ask you to sign up, and then it asks you, do you want to log in with your Facebook credentials, Google credentials? So I'll never forget this. I don't remember. I wish I would remember what website it was on. I saw this and I thought to myself, huh? And I wrote to my team and I said, guys, can we do this for us? I want to do this for us. And they got back to me again, shout out to my incredible team. And they're like, yeah, we can do this. So we started working on this and it's called OpenID Connect. It is really a robust way to authenticate users. It's technology Google, Instagram, Facebook uses. And we launched that this year. So what that did is it sort of brought forward us being the compliance directory of the industry. So the way I call ourselves is we are the TSA pre-check of the beauty industry. Right? So if you are a licensed professional, you have credentials on Beauty A-List, and then you're able to use those credentials across the board to access professional information, attend shows, and etc. But at the end of it all, in the bigger picture, is that profile on Beauty A-List gets you clients. It gets you more visibility. It brings you into the industry. Because unfortunately, the way that it is right now is the industry is very segmented. I don't know other industries if they're all like that, but everyone's just trying to survive, and I get it. I understand. At the end of the day, money talks. I understand that as well. But really, my dream for the industry is to bring everyone together for the greater good. I just think that we're much more powerful in bigger numbers. And that's really what we should do, is just rally around each other. But at the end of the day rally around the professional.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. I mean, organizations, I know you're familiar with the CEW, right?
Yes.
We've been sponsoring and partnering with them for over 10 years now, and they are really firm on this whole idea of community. You mentioned that a minute ago, and I think that really hits home. I've been doing this 3 decades now, and in these last couple of years, more and more C-suite people are interested in this idea of community and bringing people together, right? Like sharing ideas, and what used to not too long ago be very close to the vest, like I'm not telling them mine, don't tell me yours, sign this. Now very open door policy of sharing information, the smart people that you work with. You mentioned your team, the success of your team, and I think that's true for a lot of companies, right? And sharing things that have gone wrong along the way to help you better your world. I don't know where that started or who actually put that into practice, but there's a few people that come to mind, you being one of them, of people that are really open to this idea of sharing thoughts and moving the business in the industry forward.
Yes, I wish that it would happen more. And I wish that it would happen more with female entrepreneurs. And well, first of all, there are not that many of us out there. I haven't really experienced that sort of bonding, right? Which is very interesting.
Yeah.
To your point. So I hope if female entrepreneurs in the beauty industry hear this, they will reach out. But even just to give an example, a client of mine, she's in tech, and she created a LinkedIn group for women in tech, which I think is incredible. Support one another. There are 0 posts there. Women are not.
I'm surprised by that. It really is.
It's very surprising. I thought what she did was incredible. Obviously, I posted because I think it's so important for us to support one another, and it's kind of missing.
Well, as we look to the new year, we'll hope that vision changes. People a little bit more aligned with what you said. You mentioned technology, AI. Let's talk about that a little bit, because you also had another quote that I wanted to read here. AI tools, I think that you were differentiating the Beauty A-List AI tools stand out because it's not complicated to set up. It's not hard work. It's not crazy jargon. It's very user-friendly. Tell me a little bit about that, how that works and how you came up with that. And then I want specifically you. I was thinking about this when I was writing these questions. I really want to ask her about AI, right? Like, so, because it's not new, but nobody knows what they're doing, right? I was talking to a colleague today coming up the elevator about ChatGPT, and she was telling me, she's like, I put this in there and it told me how to do this. And I was like, I do this. And it's like, it's a whole new world. Like, it's a little shiny toy, but I want you to tell me what you think.
Okay. So AI, we offer AI for our professional members. It is a free service for them. They're able to use it to write captions or to create customer service responses to make their life easier. Especially nowadays, you always want to be customer centric. You want to be able to reply in a pleasant way. And sometimes you just don't know how to word it properly. So I thought it was important to provide that service. So when it comes to it being easy, I think a lot of people are intimidated. When it comes to AI or just technology in general, they're intimidated how to find it, what to put in, how to search. And once you become intimidated with something, then you just back off and you don't want to deal with it, and it just doesn't exist. I don't think people should do that. I think it's great, but I think it's terrible. So I tell you, it's the same thing about Amazon. I think Amazon's amazing, but I hate it. It's because it changed things, and AI is going to affect a lot of people's livelihoods. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think it's terrible. It's also not being monitored. I mean, we have their creators saying how bad it is. So it's a little bit terrifying, but when it comes to a professional level, I use it often. I use ChatGPT often. My husband uses it often. I think it's great because the reason why I like it is it is able to give me answers in a very quick format, and it saves a lot of time for me. That's really my biggest thing.
Listen, I went to school. I have a degree in English, but I don't fancy myself Shakespeare, right? So sometimes I write an email and I'm like, that looks like crap. And I'll just cut it, paste it, and throw it into ChatGPT and say, can you check this for grammar and spelling and style? And it comes up with something that says the same thing, but in a much nicer way. So yes. I think there's a place and a time for anything. You mentioned, I didn't want to forget, you were talking about the content and influencers, right? So on your end of things, on the back end of things, you probably don't get a lot into the influencer marketing as far as engaging the influencers, or do you?
So here's the thing. It's also a very interesting topic, right? Because my goal is to promote the beauty professional. And a lot of the times, those beauty professionals don't know how to take nice pictures. They don't have the time to have social media channels because they're busy. They're behind the chair. They're busy being moms, taking care of their household. So I have this sort of a love-hate relationship with influencers. I even know within our industry where they no longer ask for your professional credentials. They ask you for your social media credentials to see how many you have. And that I think is insane. That is absolutely insane, because what you're doing is you're diluting this professionalism, right? Because a lot of the time these people, not to say all of them, but a lot of them don't really know what they're doing. Their work looks nice, but when it comes to working with clients, they were not professionally taught. So for me, the way I envision Beauty A-List is if you're on there, you are already an influencer, right? You're a professional influencer. You know what you're doing. So I don't know. Did I answer your question?
You did.
Okay.
With those, it got me thinking too, as you were saying your answer, so not too long ago, but when I started here and doing influencer marketing, there was no such thing as influencers, right? It was more PR when we started doing press release distribution, but it was all media based, right? The content was sent out to newspapers and TV, radio, magazines, wire services, right? Stuff like you don't hear about anymore, because now it's all about these influencers. And I think you're spot on when you say, like, the credentials of today is how many thumbs ups you get or how many followers you have, and not so much what's on the back end. It's how you tell the story versus the content of and reality of the story. We saw a lot of this come into play in the presidential election, right? Like, people were getting their news from social media, and this is 2025, right? This is how people are doing it. Not so much ABC, CBS, and NBC. That's my generation. Now it's more of the, what did they say on X, or what did they say on
Substack.
TikTok?
Have you heard of Substack?
Substack, right? Yes.
Yeah, that's like a big thing now. And I think it's really incredible because it goes back to the roots. The people are the ones that are funding the writers, and the writers are not paid by these agencies. They're just writing what they're writing. I think it's incredible.
You said about the beauty business that you have had success in building genuine relationships, right? I tend to agree with you again, just doing my little research. There was a lot of things that you say that tie directly into what I do, and I have the same exact thought, and that's one of them, right? Like, success is not based on contracts. Success is not based on, what you say you're going to do unless you're backing it up. It's really on these relationships that you build, just like old school, right? Like, people depend on you to come through on a certain way. You've made promises. You're going to service them in a certain way, and following through consistently again and again on my end has really been what has separated PIMS from the rest of the pack. Tell me about on your end. Like, what did you mean by that, building genuine relationships?
Yes, actually, I think that's fascinating.
I love that this research that I've done on you, right?
Wow, that's amazing. You might know more about me than my husband. It's actually, it's quite interesting. I've recently started speaking to a UK-based company, and it's fascinating to see the difference in communication. This is really my first time speaking to others outside. And I don't know if you've experienced the same, but I mean, I've had people not show up to my meetings.
Oh.
My favorite. Or when you log in, 10 minutes later without saying anything. I just think it's beyond just disrespectful to the other person. I think that no matter what, there needs to be that mutual level of respect. And if you're running late, I will always say I'm running late. If you don't show up, you don't show up. I think it's always better to communicate. And when it comes to authenticity, I think it's just important to really listen to people and really care about what they say. So I always try to be genuine in my interactions and just always listen to what issues they're dealing with. So
even if it's bad news too, right? Like, sometimes that's how the relationship grows. Like my wife, that nothing's perfect, right? And you want to make sure that you're hearing the good and the bad. Same goes with the clients.
I think it's important. And I think also because technology, as fantastic as it is, it removed that communication and it removed that level of connection. So what do we do all day? We just sit and stare at a screen.
Right.
And it's actually fascinating. So, because I thought about this, right? So my dad was in the cosmetics industry for a long time, obviously in the 90s, right before the internet. And he has the hardest time understanding that I can't get a hold of people and that people are just not replying. And then I thought to myself, how would these people survive? Because back in the day, you couldn't screen calls. You picked up the call. So you had to have that conversation, and letting people down, you had to be faced with it. So if you think about it, it was a different way of how people communicated, and you had to say things to people's faces versus just disappearing on them because you don't want to say something that makes you uncomfortable.
And I'm sure you're like I am too. You know, I was terrified of public speaking. I was terrified of going into meetings, more than one person, hot sweats. Oh my God. But because I did those things, it has changed who I am forever, right? Like it gives you the confidence. Being confident comes from knowledge of what you're talking about or selling and being comfortable with yourself, right? And how do you learn those things? You learn those things from trial, error, and failure of doing things like, picking up calls and expecting people to answer, not hiding behind emails all the time. I think that is a lost art. Probably, the tidal wave of COVID hit and people were just all too happy to get behind emails and figure that's the way to go. But I think you're right. I think we lose something in that, not only for relationship building, but for professional development of yourself.
Fun fact, speaking of being comfortable with people and sweats, during, during my nail exam on the state board, my hands were shaking so badly that I couldn't file a nail. That's how bad it was. And I kept sitting there thinking, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail because
this is the worst thing in my life that'll ever happen to me.
And thank God the inspector saw that it was just nerves, and she saw that I knew what I was doing, and she passed me. And I'm actually friendly with her now, and we laugh about it all the time. I'm like, oh my God, can you imagine? But yeah, it's, sometimes just nerves get the best of you, but you just got to keep going.
You said vulnerability is the key to success.
I think there are multiple factors that go into it. I think vulnerability, but I think really the key to the success is determination. It's just that ability to not let the outside voices stop you from being a bulldozer. That's the way it is. You just got to keep going. And nothing can get in the way of what you're doing. You have to be smart about it. You have to pivot. You have to learn. You have to listen to others. Obviously, it's not just you're a bulldozer going in one direction, but you're on a path and you need to keep going. I think that's truly the key, because a lot of people just give up. A lot of people are either scared to even start, or they see that they keep having issues or they keep having problems and they just think it's not going to happen. I mean, the amount of rejections that I've had, that same show where I met Tal, I was in front of a brand owner. She's no longer around. I'm not sure if she sold or whatnot. And I told her the idea and she looked me in the face and she said, oh, honey, it will never work. But here's the thing. I actually appreciated her. You know why? She was an older lady and she didn't understand. It was too much for her to understand.
Yeah.
Technology, directory, what? So that's why she was like, oh, honey, it's never going to work. And here's the thing. I will always appreciate those that are blunt, that are honest.
Yeah.
More than those that just say stuff just because they think that's what you want to hear. You don't get anything out of it. Neither one of you gets anything out of it. I would much prefer just blunt honesty, criticism. So that way, obviously criticism with respect, but criticism that comes from a good place. Not because you want to put me down, but because you want to teach me something, because you think, there are ways for me to do things better.
Yeah, that's the deepest form of maturity, right? When you're able to, the last thing you want is lip service or somebody just sort of head nodding their way through it when in the back of your head, you're like, they don't believe in what I'm saying. They don't even give a shit. They're just hearing me out and watching the clock and it's going to be over. I'd much rather have somebody say no, but here's why, right? So you can look to that and change that and correct that or increase that, whatever you think is the best. You've been giving out advice all through this talk here, but I was going to ask you, from so many different angles, from education to leadership to entrepreneur to your experience in the beauty world, what advice would you give to somebody? I'm a college student. I'm a high school girl or guy that wants to get into the nail or beauty world. I have a great idea for a new product. I want to start my own company. What's some good advice you can give to the people listening?
Find mentors. I think that's crucial in the beginning. Those that will believe in you and that will be the wind beneath your wings. Because in the beginning, that's all that matters. And then once you have successes, start celebrating them. I think that is the biggest pitfall that we all have as entrepreneurs. We don't ever celebrate them because what happens is once it happens, you already moved on to the next thing you got to do. And you just got to keep going. And that is the one thing that I've started doing recently where I'm going to celebrate today. I was on a podcast today. You need to start giving yourself credit because little by little, those are the batteries that keep you charged. Otherwise, all you're doing is just constantly thinking of the negative and things that are not happening.
Really good point. They used to call it being my own cheerleader, but I think you're 100% right. If you don't stop and smell those success roses every once in a while, they fly by you, right? And by the time you realize it, you're already down the road and somebody's like, I didn't know you did this. And you're like, yeah, but I'm doing this next thing. You got to enjoy the moment too.
Yeah, it's because it's super easy to get hard on yourself. So easy because you're never until you are at the point where you want to be, right? For me, I want to ring the bell. I want to have a company that goes public until I get to it. So I need to realize that that is a big goal. I'm going to get there, but there will be steps and I need to celebrate every one of those steps because every one of those steps will lead me to the goal.
What's next for Licensify? What do you have in the works? What's planned? What do you want to do?
Well, my next big thing is working with trade shows. I really want to start promoting compliance within the industry and really alleviate a lot of the issues that these trade shows have by verifying credentials. So that will be the next thing I'm very excited about. I'm working on a big, exciting event that we will work together on. I don't want to say too much because there are a couple of things that I'm changing based on input. Again, goes back to sort of pivoting and listening. But yeah, I'm always working on new things.
And I think that's a really good point too with the shows. I've been to a show or two in my life, and sometimes the worst parts of it are registering, both live and online, pre-registering, freezing during registration. It's trying to capture too much information, so it's blocking you out. There are so many horror shows behind that, that having somebody that's able to sort of dumb that down and make it quicker, easier, and more streamlined is exactly what the industry needs.
Yes.
Dasha, I'm going to finish this interview. We do a little lightning round here on Minutes with Mike.
Okay.
I didn't tell you what this is going to be.
No,
but
I'm excited.
This is 50% Mike Ryan, 50% Chat GPT. I put your LinkedIn profile into Chat GPT, and I said, I need 8 or 10 this or that type questions for her. She's going to be my guest on my podcast. And it came up with these half are nail care and half are having to do with entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And it's a this or that, one or the other.
Okay.
So the quicker the answer, the better. Are you ready?
All right, hold on. Let's go.
All right, Dasha, here we go. Gel manicure or classic polish?
Classic polish.
This is the nail care portion.
Okay.
Neutral tones or bold colors?
Bold colors. Even though mine are.
Do-it-yourself nail care or salon visits?
It depends on who you go to. That's a really hard one. If you have someone that knows what they're doing, salon visits, of course. It's very hard to do your own nails.
I saw an article in the paper, online, that was talking about that the people that get their nails done put more time and effort into finding that perfect person than they do their own doctor.
Really?
Isn't that incredible?
I mean, it makes sense.
Nail art designs or solid colors?
Solid colors.
Round nail shape or square nail?
Oval.
Seasonal trends or timeless styles?
Timeless.
Let's move to the entrepreneurship. So, okay, here we go. Solo entrepreneurship or co-founding a business?
Co-founding.
Networking in person or online?
Oh, in person.
I knew you were going to say that. I should have crossed that one out.
Oh, that's like not even
Early mornings or late nights?
It depends for what.
Like, if you had to do like a big presentation for a new client, are you getting up early to do it, or are you staying up super late?
Okay, if the presentation is the next day, I'm staying up super late because I am a professional procrastinator.
Me too.
We're the same person, Mike.
We are the same person. Business plan or spontaneous ideas?
Spontaneous ideas that turn into business plan.
Last one. Bootstrapping or seeking investors?
Oh, God, that's a really good one. They both suck. They're both terrible options. I don't know. I guess investors are nice because you have the funds. But at that point, all you're doing is spending time looking for
That's right.
And
That's
it affects your business. So I don't know. They're both crappy options. Not to say that I don't want people going into their own businesses. You absolutely should start your own business, and I encourage entrepreneurship. But let's be honest here. They're both crappy options, but you know.
Dasha, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for being our guest. We learned a lot, and I really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.